This is part 8 of What If Naruto Lost His Sight. If you enjoy this What If, then like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Thanks you all for the support as well. It means a lot to me and gives me more motivation. Start chapter. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 18. So, hope you enjoy. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. The next morning, I let out a yawn as I sat, cross-legged in the sand. I really should have used to these morning training sessions, but I had a hard time shaking my drowsiness when my sensei barely gave me time to get ready this morning. Okay, Naruto. Jiraiya seemed more enthusiastic than usual. Today, I'm going to teach you how to summon toads. Why would I want to summon a frog? Toad. Whatever, I yawned. Can't we focus on something else? Why would we do that? Toads are the best. What am I going to do with a toad against Neji? I asked. He placed his hands on his hips in disapproval. And what do you think would be useful, I thought for a moment, knowing there was something that needed to be addressed but not remembering what. How about doing something to make it harder for that stalker of yours to sneak up on you? The QB suggested in a bored tone of voice. Like what? Oh, I don't know, maybe what Jiraiya thought you were creating your jutsu for 2 weeks ago. Just a thought. I didn't say anything, he sighed. The fake Byakugan, you moron. Finishing my jutsu would help. I gestured impatiently, hoping he didn't think much on my hesitation. There was silence from the other man as he just stood there. I wanted it to copy the Byakugan so I can level the playing field a bit. Don't you remember? Oh yeah, that's right. He scratched the back of his head for a moment before his hand dropped tentatively to his side. I gave him a suspicious look as he continued. I suppose we can do that, but I really think you should learn the summoning as well. Why? You can't fight with shadow clones alone. I watched him silently, knowing he was right. After a few seconds he must have realized I had nothing to say and continued. So, here's how we'll do this. I'll teach you the summons in the morning, then after lunch we'll work on the new versions of, what's it called again? What? I asked, giving him a confused look. I forgot what you named it, he admitted. I stared back at him blankly. You did name your jutsu, right? What? Yeah, of course I did, I exclaimed. It's, I call it the, I forgot. Oh yes, the famous I forgot jutsu. How could I have not remembered its name? Jiraiya said, the sarcasm heavy in his voice. It's always followed closely by the what's it called jutsu and the it had a cool name, I swear jutsu. No, I forgot to name it. Jiraiya sighed in response. Of course you did, Jiraiya sighed. I guess we'll be figuring that out in the afternoon as well. Does that sound good? Yeah, I guess, I answered, climbing to my feet. What do I have to do for this training? More stuff with leaves, almost drowning in the lake again. Both. We shall see, Jiraiya chuckled lightly. Before I could ask what that meant, he bit his thumb and ran his hands through a number of signs faster than my jutsu was able to catch. Summoning jutsu, he shouted as he slammed his palm onto the ground. There was a loud poof sound before my sensei disappeared behind what I assumed had to be a cloud of smoke. Only when it finally cleared, did I see that he was now twice as tall due to the fact he was standing on a large, toad-shaped figure. Show off, I muttered, earning a huff of dismay from Jiraiya. I'll have you know that was completely necessary to get the contract here. Jiraiya jumped off the toad, taking a scroll the size of his arm out of its mouth. Contract? I asked tentatively. Yes, Naruto, a contract. He walked towards me a few steps then rolled it open in front of me. When one wants to summon an animal like this they have to sign a contract. I'm not going to end up signing my soul away or something, am I? I asked, only half joking. The paper was making me really nervous. After all, I might be able to do a lot of things with the unnamed jutsu, but reading wasn't one of them. No, nothing like that, he said with a chuckle. It's more for their own protection than anything else. Most of them ensure that you do not mean to do them harm or won't set them up for something malicious. Of course, there are others that add things to it. For instance, the snake summons demand a sacrifice every time you summon one of the largest ones. But, don't worry, the toads have nothing of that sorts in their contract. That's good. I didn't look up as I continued to stare at what easily could have been a blank piece of paper in front of me. Damn straight it is. Jiraiya kneeled on the other side of the scroll, looking down at it as well. First, pick the hand you want to summon with, preferably your dominant one. Then you bite your thumb and sign your name in blood. I nodded in response, but didn't move to follow any of it. He didn't seem to notice because he just kept explaining. Unfortunately, the last person to sigh this wasn't exactly neat, so you should probably sigh it about here. Jiraiya pointed at the part of the scroll directly in front of me. I nodded again, hiding a nervous gulp as I slowly bit my right thumb. I took my time as I tried to convince myself that this was going to be easy. All I was doing was writing my name straight down. There was nothing difficult to it. I put my left hand down close to where Jiraiya was pointing, hoping he'd think it was to keep the paper steady. He stopped pointing, leaving my hand as the only thing that told me where I was supposed to sign. I hesitated again before putting my thumb to the paper and writing my name the best I could. When I was done, I gave a small sigh of relief and watched Jiraiya examine my signature. Always messy, always. I swear I've never seen a 12-year-old signature that was neat, he said, shaking his head. Anyways, just get a bit of blood on each of your fingertips and press them down right here. He pointed at the bottom of the paper. Okay, I nodded, pressing each of my fingers against my thumb before placing them all down where he had pointed. Is that all? For the contract, yes. Jiraiya rolled the scroll back up again with a small kick and picking it up. Now, it's time to summon. And how do I do that? Oh yeah, didn't teach you that yet, did I? He asked, scratching his head in an embarrassed manner. Perform the signs, boar, dog, bird, monkey, and ram, then slam your right hand onto the pavement like I did. If you have the right balance of chakra, then you can easily summon a toad as large as this guy. Jiraiya patted the toad on the head as he passed it the scroll. Of course it also takes quite a bit of chakra, but I'm sure you won't have a problem with that, Jiraiya said with a chuckle. Well, go ahead, try it out. Here goes nothing, I muttered. I positioned myself so I was kneeling on the ground, then focused on my hands as I carefully went through each of the 5 symbols needed. Only when they were complete did I start putting chakra into it, molding it like it felt it should be. I smirked as I brought my hands apart, finding the jutsu a lot easier than signing the stupid contract. Summoning jutsu, I shouted, slamming my hand onto the ground. There was a large poof of smoke that forced me back onto my butt. I coughed and waved the smoke away the best I could. Once it had dispersed, I saw that I had, indeed, summoned a toad. If you could consider an inch-long tadpole with 2 stubby rear legs a toad. Jiraiya, his toad, and I stared at it for a while, none of us saying much. The only sound I heard was the QB laughing quite loudly while we sat there. Is that it? I asked. What did you expect, to summon Gambuta on your first attempt? This kind of stuff takes lots of practice, and time. I was hoping to be done in an hour, or at least by lunch today. No dice, kid. There is no way you can completely learn such an awesome jutsu in just a few hours, Jiraiya explained. He motioned towards his toad that it could leave, causing another poof of smoke to appear in its wake. The small tadpole followed suit soon after. You better get started. I sighed as I got back to work. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. 4 hours later. Jiraiya watched as the smoke cleared from around his student, revealing the newest of the uncountable number of toads he summoned today. This particular one was about 2 inches long with 4 legs, and a tail. Soon after, Naruto flopped onto the sand and let out a frustrated groan. Why can't the tail just go away? He exclaimed, as the young toad returned home with a poof. I told you, it takes work, Jiraiya said with a sigh. He was lounging on a picnic blanket, spending his spare time writing in a notebook. Or he would be, if he had anything to write. Even after 4 hours of work, the only thing on the page was a few shapeless doodles. I've spent all morning on this and all that's happened is that they now have 4 legs. At least you're improving, he said. But it's so slow. Stop complaining and start working. I'm going to bleed to death before I summon a real toad. Jiraiya heard him mutter. No you won't, Jiraiya said. He watched as the boy bit his thumb for probably the millionth time that day. For some reason the wound kept healing up almost as soon as the jutsu was finished. Why not? Naruto said as he ran through the hand signs almost with ease. Because I'm pretty sure the Kyuubi's pride would be hurt if he let you die in a stupid way. And, trust me, bleeding to death from spamming half-formed toads would no doubt fall under that category. Jiraiya received an annoyed look from his pupil as Naruto finishing the jutsu with an enthusiastic statement of its name. Jiraiya waited for the smoke to get out of the way again only to see another 4-legged tadpole. The tail's a bit shorter, he said, looking at it briefly before turning back to his notebook. Though, he did make sure to keep his eyes on his student. The small toad stayed for a moment before disappearing yet again. Naruto only stood there for a little bit, looking more frustrated now than he did when he thought Jiraiya was watching him. Naruto seemed to be trying to convince himself to start again when Jiraiya heard his watch vibrate, stopping the boy in his tracks. Naruto held his arm up and ran his thumb over the watch, checking the time as his sensei pretended not to notice. Time for lunch, the boy said as he walked over to the picnic blanket and sat down. What you got? Jiraiya put aside his notebook, pulled out storage seal, and released a pile of sandwiches. Sandwiches again? Naruto asked, staring at the food. Well, maybe if you used your manners once in a while I would have brought something different, he retorted, trying to give Naruto a pointed look. He was thoroughly ignored. It took him a moment to remember that Naruto probably couldn't see said look. His jutsu worked only so well, and, from what Jiraiya has seen, facial features weren't part of what it could pick up. Naruto grumbled as he grabbed a sandwich and started eating it in a somewhat grumpy manner. And if what Jiraiya heard about yesterday was true for his student, he had every right to be. If Jiraiya had been in the same situation, well, he probably would have enjoyed the fact that a woman was stealing all his clothes, but then again, he wasn't a 12-year-old kid anymore. Jiraiya sighed, grabbing one of the sandwiches just as Naruto was going for seconds. The boy was doing surprisingly well for someone who hasn't been blind for more than a few weeks. It was pretty impressive, watching him train as if it wasn't even a problem. Despite everything Jiraiya had thrown at him, the only thing that has tripped him up so far was the contract. Sensei, Naruto asked, snapping Jiraiya out of his thoughts. He looked over at the boy to see him staring at the half-eaten sandwich he was holding in his lap. What, you going to complain about the bread being stale or something? Naruto's head lowered a few inches more, like a guilty flinch. No, I'm sorry, Naruto muttered, Jiraiya barely catching the words. What was that? I don't think I heard you, Jiraiya teased, getting Naruto to lift his head to glare at him. I said I'm sorry, I shouldn't have complained so much about you teaching me a new jutsu, Naruto explained, looking tentative once again. It's a really cool jutsu and I was being grumpy for no reason. First I'll say, your apology is accepted. Second, who put you up to this? Naruto gave him a startled look that he quickly tried to cover up. What? I don't know what you're talking about. You're a strong-willed boy who doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. So, who made you admit it now, to me? Naruto stayed silent. It was the Kyuubi, wasn't it? He said if I didn't stop winning like a baby, he was going to treat me like one, Naruto said with a glare. He then talked to me only in baby talk for the next 5 minutes. Well, you know you're definitely wrong when you get lectured by a demon. Yeah, tell me about it, Naruto huffed in annoyance. And thanks for teaching me to summon toads. I know you didn't need to or anything, so thanks. I've always liked toads. You're welcome, Jiraiya responded, a smile spreading across his face. Do you feel like stopping at Ichiraku's after training? Naruto's attention perked considerably. Seriously. Only if you don't complain anymore, because I will take back my offer if I hear any more of that today. Is that clear? Hi sensei. Now finish eating so we can get back to work, Jiraiya said unnecessarily as he saw Naruto start to scarf down the rest of his sandwich. End chapter 18. Start chapter 19. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 19. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. 5 hours later. Wavy chakra jutsu, I suggested. We were done for the day and finally on our way to the ramen stand. I didn't complain at all, no matter what ridiculous training he put me through, which just happened to be me sitting there trying to keep a crown of coins sticking around my head. He didn't even bother to tell me why, but I kept quiet. Ramen was on the line. Too strange, Jiraiya shot down. Radar jutsu. Too boring, I answered. Bat sight jutsu. Doesn't make sense. Jiraiya shook his head. The third eye jutsu. That's not too bad, I said in thought. I was interrupted by the Kyuubi's chuckling. Yeah, that will do nicely. If you change your name to Tien. But it amuses the Kyuubi too much so we have to find something else, I said with a sigh while said fox muttered about, ruining his fun. There's got to be a really good name for that jutsu. Having just reached the ramen stand, I sat down at one of the stools as my sensei followed suit. Yeah, it's out there somewhere. We just have to find it, he answered, sounding as frustrated as I was. Find what? Aim asked as she came over to take our orders. Naruto, did you leave your book somewhere again? No, it's in my pouch. I flashed her the book before putting it back where I had it. We're trying to find a name for the new jutsu he created, Jiraiya explained. And we haven't had any luck so far. Naruto created a jutsu, Aim grinned excitedly. Well, I helped. Good job Naruto, I'm proud of you, she said, making me sit a little taller out of pride. To celebrate, your first round of ramen's on us. Really? I asked as excited as she was. Of course, what type? Beef, I exclaimed, arigato Aim. You're welcome, she said before turning to Jiraiya. And you? I'll have a miso, Jiraiya answered. Alright, I'll return with your order as soon as they're done. She smiled wide again before going to her father and giving him the order. Jiraiya and I sat there silently, the only sound between us being the scratch of his pen on paper and the tap of my leg twitching impatiently. After a few minutes I'd had enough of it. Ero Senin, I called, getting his attention. His pen froze before he slowly turned to look at me. I continued before he could complain. You didn't tell me why I had to keep those coins stuck to my head. No, I didn't. He let out an annoyed sigh and continued writing, not bothering to continue. Why? Why is an onion? He didn't even look up from his paper as I stared at him in confusion. What? Why is an onion? He repeated. I didn't say anything as he sighed. The more you ask, why, the more layers there are. Like an onion. I don't get it. Of course you don't, Jiraiya shook his head. Anyways, the coin crown was a training exercise. I know that, I told him, glad to get back to a subject that didn't involve strange vegetables. But why did you have me do it? What purpose does it do other than make me look ridiculous? It was to help your chakra get used to focusing in several places at once for the new version of your, chakra location, jutsu. Nope, sounds like it finds chakra, I responded before going back to the question at hand. But why does my chakra need to do that? Think about it kid, if you want to see all over using that jutsu, what would you do? He waited for me to answer but nothing was coming to mind. Alright, your jutsu acts like an eyeball, right? It can only pick up what is in front of it. Yeah. So, if you wanted to be able to see behind you without a dojutsu, what would you do? Well, I'd probably just create a shadow clone and have him stand back to back with me so he could tell me what was going on. It would give me another set of eyes on the target, I answered. Jiraiya gestured for me to continue. I gave him another confused look. And how would you do that with your jutsu? Do you mean more focus points? Bingo, he said with a smirk. You will need 4 of them for what you want to do, 1 on each side of your head. That makes sense, but why the coins? Why couldn't you just use leaves like before? The coins are harder to keep on your head and you needed more of a challenge. Jiraiya closed his notebook and placed his pen on top it. Plus, I believe you've gotten used to the leaves. I was just about to continue when I saw Aim coming towards us out of the corner of my vision. She was carrying what had to be bowls of ramen that were to be delivered. I turned towards her, an excited smile spreading across my face. Here you go, she said cheerfully as she placed the 4 bowls their appropriate owners. I hope you enjoy. Arigato, I exclaimed as I lunged for the chopsticks, knocking the cup over in the process. Sorry. That's all right, Aim said, already picking up the chopsticks. I tried to help her but couldn't see the pieces of wood well enough to do so. She ended up cleaning up most of them while I guiltily went back to my ramen. So, what's this new jutsu of yours? Well, it doesn't have a name yet, I replied around my ramen. Don't talk with your mouth full. Jiraiya didn't even look at me as he reprimanded me. It's rude. I glared at him, but still swallowed what I had in my mouth before continuing. Anyways, I don't know what to call it, but it kinda acts like a radar. I send out waves of chakra that return when they hit something and let me know what's around me. I took a bite of ramen then continued. I'm working on a more advanced version that sends the waves out in all directions. That's pretty cool, she said, her voice smiling. So it's kinda like echolocation, but with chakra echoes. Right, I froze at her words, my chopsticks almost falling out of my hand. There was a clatter of wood against ceramic that told me that Jiraiya's chopsticks actually did fall. Neither of us spoke as we turned to stare at each other in awe. Chakra echoes, Jiraiya questioned. Chakra echoes, I answered, excitement making its way into my voice. What? Aim looked between the two of us, her voice confused. Did I say something wrong? No, Aim, you're a genius. I threw my arms in the air, almost knocking myself off the stool in the process. It's the perfect name, Chakra Echo Jutsu. Well, I'm glad I could help. She placed the cup of chopsticks back onto the table and went about her business. That is a very good name, Jiraiya replied, his chopsticks full of noodles waiting in front of his mouth. She has a knack for this type of stuff. I hummed in acknowledgement as I ate, to keep from talking with my mouth full again. So, what do you think the new one should be called? I paused in my eating, wide-eyed. Damn it. End chapter 19. Start chapter 20. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 20. Hope you enjoy. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. 5 days later. I wiped sweat off my forehead as examined the new toad I just summoned. I focused really hard on it, trying to figure out if it was a full toad or just another tadpole with legs. Over the past couple days it had been getting progressively harder and harder to tell. There had been a few yesterday that were actual toads, but just barely, and I couldn't summon them consistently. Which is why, at 7:30 in the morning, I was practicing before Jiraiya came to pick me up for the day. I knelt down to get a better look at him. From what I could see, he didn't have a tail, but even with all the practicing I had doing with my chakra echoes, I still was missing details. I had a feeling that it would never pick up everything like I had hoped it would. This was exactly why I didn't fully trust it when trying to find tails on toads. While the toad had his back to me, I poked his butt. He spun around with a loud croak of complaint, but he didn't have a tail. Yes, no tail, I shouted, throwing my hands in the air. The toad let out an angry ribbit before hitting me right in my focus point. Everything went black for a moment as I was knocked back on my own butt. When my vision returned, I saw the toad stare at me before disappearing into a poof of smoke. Well, you didn't have to be so rude about it. I glared at the spot he used to be for a moment before sitting cross-legged on the ground. Okay, so that's 7 in a row now. I think I've actually got this down. Whoop-de-doo, they QB said, an enthusiastic ally. Oh, shut it, this is important. Oh yes, because your life will definitely hinge on your ability to make a toad the size of your palm appear out of thin air. It's important to me, I muttered. I climbed back to my feet before beginning the search for clean clothes. You should be working on your fake Byakugan in your free time. I have been, and you know it. I knelt down and searched through the clothes pile. I was able to pick out some clean pants, shirt, and underwear, but there was no clean jacket. In fact, out of the 7 wind suits I owned, there were only 3 jackets left that the other Jinchuriki hadn't stolen yet. After the goggles incident last week, she's decided to keep my jacket every time she steals it. Luckily, I've only ran into her 4 times in the last week. 2 simultaneous points isn't good enough. I know, back off already. I'm doing the best I can, I exclaimed, gathering my clothes and heading to the bathroom for a really quick shower. You should be glad I can see behind me. It's saved me twice this week after all. And, if you could see on your right and left too, then you'd still have 3 out of those 4 jackets she took. If you hadn't been so distracting yesterday, she wouldn't have the last one either. I set my clean clothes on top the toilet and ran my fingers across the wall to make sure the towel was on its hook. The thing was so thin that sometimes I couldn't even pick it up. I stripped out of my clothes and began fiddling with the knobs, hoping I actually had some hot water today. Oh, so you're allowed to be loud all the time, yet I do it and I'm distracting, and it costs you a coat. I see how it is. You were demanding that I steal Sasuke's remote so I can mess with his TV on my way home every night. I rolled my eyes as I entered the shower. That is not a good excuse, cold. Sometimes the best pranks are the simplest, the QB said with a chuckle. For instance, your landlord turning off your water at random points in the week could easily be considered a good prank. If he wasn't actually trying to be an asshole. Looks like you have a cold shower ahead of you. Shut up, I muttered, already starting to rush through my routine. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. 20 minutes later. I was just finishing my cereal when Jiraiya let himself in. I heard his footsteps stop suddenly in my foyer, not moving for a moment. In the silence, I took a bite of my breakfast, my spoon shaking. Naruto, why are you wearing 3 jackets? Jiraiya asked. No hot water, I murmured around chattering teeth. But 3 jackets, sounds like a little much. Jiraiya's footsteps started up again, making their way towards the table. It's almost summer, after all. That water was really cold, I answered as he finally came into sight. I watched him sit at the other end of the table, facing me. I wouldn't be surprised if my water's coming straight out of a freezer instead of a water heater. From what you've told me, I wouldn't be either. He shook his head slowly, before turning his attention back towards me. Ready to go. What are we doing today? I asked, focusing my sight on my bowl. If I looked really close, I could just find the outlines to the stray pieces of cereal floating around. That meant my chakra echoes were becoming more refined, since it was only a few days ago that I had trouble with chopsticks. Oh, just a little training experiment. That's all, Jiraiya answered as I pretended not to notice the slight hesitation in the statement. It's something I thought would help you with summoning toads, since you're having trouble and all. I summoned 7 full toads this morning. Does that get me out of the experiment? What size were they? As big as my fist, I said proudly. I saw his head turn to look at one of my hands for a moment. Your hands are small, he stated flatly. They are not, I exclaimed. Plus, those are the biggest toads I've summoned so far. And consistently. I get it, you're proud of yourself, Jiraiya said with a sigh. And if you weren't on such a time crunch, I'd think this was great progress. But you have maybe a week left before the final phase and the skill isn't even usable. Therefore, you need a bit of help. I frowned, eagerly searching for some way he could be wrong. He wasn't. Fine, I admitted as I stripped off the spare coats. What is this experiment of yours? Oh, nothing much, he said. I raised an eyebrow at his failing nonchalant tone. Is it dangerous? There was a pause. Time to go. Huh. I watched as he reached across the table and grabbed my arm right before he shunshined us both away. With a poof, I was sitting on the ground, my vision wavering in transfer. When it finally stabilized, I noticed we were somewhere I've never seen before. This place seemed similar to the training grounds, yet wasn't. What I meant was that it smelled like where we go every day, but instead of a hot spring and sand, there were trees and bushes. In fact, the foliage was so dense that I couldn't see very far in any direction. Sensei, this doesn't look like our normal training grounds, I said wearily. That's good, because it's not, he stated. I got up off the ground, dusted myself off, and dropped my spoon in the process. You could have at least let me put my dishes away, I told him as I picked up the spoon and waved it at him. Now I'm going to lose one of my 2 spoons and my apartment's going to smell like old milk. Back to complaining again. No, I'm just telling you. I don't want to lose my silverware and I don't like my apartment smelling like old milk. Sounds like complaining to me. I sighed in exasperation, not wanting to continue this conversation. Where are we, Sensei, and why are we here? It's for your new training. Which is something I hope will work, he said, artfully avoiding the question. Sensei, how am I supposed to do this training if you don't tell me what it is? Like this. I was just about to give him a confused look when he raised a finger and poked my forehead. The tap surprisingly sent stumbling backwards a few feet and my vision swimming again. I took a few more steps backwards to try to keep him from doing so again, only to find nothing under one of my feet. Before I knew what had happened, I started falling backwards. I panicked, trying to get the chakra echoes started again, but to no avail. I was moving so quickly that by the time the echoes were on their way back I was long gone. So, now I was not only falling, but I had no idea what I was falling into. I yelled, the unknown making me fearful. I had no way of knowing how long I was going to fall, or even what was down there that would, eventually, stop it. For all I know, this chasm could go on forever, never ending, which, I suppose, is better than it ending. I was just running through what I could possibly do to stop this when I heard a deep laughter echoing through my head. What the hell are you laughing at? I shouted at him, causing the QB only to laugh harder. I am falling to my death at this very moment and all you can do is laugh. Help me, damn it. Don't think so, he said around his laughter. Why not? I could die. Yes, you could, his laughter devolving to chuckles. Then why aren't you helping me? I thought you didn't want me to die. I never said that. What about that whole stupid death thing? Never said that either, your sensei did. That's it, I'm coming in there, I yelled. You don't know how, Kit. I'm desperate, I'll figure something out. I closed my eyes, ignoring everything, from the whispered, obviously, that came from the QB, to the falling sensation I still felt. Everything was tuned out as I tried my best to enter my own mindscape. I don't know whether it was the need to get there or just that I've just improved a lot since the last time I tried, but somehow, when I opened my eyes again, the view of the sewers was there to greet me. I grinned slightly. I know that sewer pipes aren't the best thing to see on their own, but after seeing nothing but the pale forms my chakra echoes come back with, I didn't really mind. It didn't take me long to find the QB. After all, it's not that hard to find a giant fox behind a giant gate. Told you I would, I said. Crossing my arms I glared at the fox in front of me. He yawned, his tail swishing behind him were the only indication of his previous amusement. And what an accomplishment that was, accessing your own mind. You should be so proud of yourself. Don't give me sarcasm, I'm falling to my death and really don't need your flack. Are you sure? I find that it makes situations like this so much better. Why won't you help me? You seem to forget that I'm, essentially a demon. I do this type of stuff on a whim. I closed my eyes, my eyelid twitching in annoyance. I took a calming breath before opening my eyes and continuing. And what, whim, is it that keeping you from helping me not die? It's Tuesday, he said. My jaw dropped as I stared at him in disbelief. Also because you're supposed to do that thing on Tuesdays that you haven't done yet. The pranks. Yes. You're refusing to help me because I haven't done a prank. Yes. It's 8 in the morning. I haven't had time for pranks. That's your problem, not mine. Then how the hell am I not supposed to die? I exclaimed, pulling at my hair with both hands. I could be dead already just from talking to you and not even know it. This is your mind, Kit. Everything that happens here, happens at the speed of thought. Therefore, you could be an inch from the bottom and not know it in here for several more hours. Oh, I said, processing this information. But I can't stay here forever. For once, you're right. Then what am I supposed to do? I flopped down to sit in the sewer water as I crossed my arms once again. The only thing I can think of is spamming a ton of clones to break my fall, but with all this training, my chakra hasn't had time to replenish much at all. At this point I couldn't make enough clones to clean my room. Maybe you could use that useless jutsu to save yourself. You know, the I can summon toads the size of my tiny palm jutsu. Maybe I will, I exclaimed. The QB flashed a grin, as if calling my bluff. Or what had started as one. Oh, what are you going to do, spawn a ton of those small toads to land on? I doubt the toad community would be very happy about that. No, I said simply, a smile spreading across my own face. I'll summon one big one. With what chakra? Yours, of course. End chapter 20. Start chapter 21. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 21. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. The QB stared at me for a moment. Mind repeating that, I must be having a hard time hearing today. He lifted one of his giant paws and used his pinky claw to clean out his ear. It was strange, I could have sworn you said you'd be using my chakra. I did. There was another pause. So tell me, what the hell gave you the impression I'd just hand over my chakra after saying I wasn't going to help you? You don't have a choice. I believe I do, that's why it's my chakra. But you're in my body. That makes it my chakra by default. That's not how it works, you little brat, and you know it, the QB growled, narrowing his eyes at me. But I stood firm, I was not about to be intimidated in my own mind. Sounds right to me, I said, staring down the fox in front of me. My body, my chakra. I should let you die for your impertinence. But letting me die would make you look bad. Killing a human has never been held against me before, why should it now? I paused for a moment, trying to figure out if he told the truth. You're bluffing, I decided, my voice not sounding all too sure of itself. The QB only grinned, making me nervous for the first time since this conversation started. I thought I couldn't lie. The QB lowered his head so his eyes were level with mine. Doesn't that mean that I can't bluff either? I stuttered, trying to come up with something to say, but his unblinking gaze made it very difficult to do so. After hearing only a few strange sounds come out of my mouth, the QB continued with a chuckle. Therefore, if I was bluffing now, that means I would have to have lied about not being able to do so. Then, you'd have to doubt every word I've said so far. My eyes widened as I realized that he was telling the truth. If he really had fooled me all this time, then there was nothing he could have said that I would be able to believe completely. I might as well have let him out when I first met him. I felt my hands start to shake as brief glimpses of the terror crossed my mind. Buildings tumbling down and people screaming as the QB destroyed all he could, all because I believed him. I see you're starting to understand, the QB said, his voice rumbling through the sewer ominously. How believing one false statement has the potential to destroy everything you hold dear. Because if I'm ever free of you, truly free, I will kill all of those responsible for locking me away. The grin was gone from his face by the time he reached his last words. So tell me, Kit, he continued, his eyes still locked with mine. Was I bluffing, Am I still bluffing? I don't. You don't what? You don't know. I'm sorry, that's not an answer I can accept. It's either yes, I'm bluffing about letting you die, or I'm not. After all, you don't have the time for indecision. You could go splat any moment now. But you said I had time. I did say, and according to you I could be untrustworthy and lying about anything. Are you really willing to take that chance? Thoughts raced by as I tried to figure out an answer to his question. Was he telling the truth? Either could be true. He could easily be incapable of lying as he could. My mind stopped, a spark of an idea appearing. It wasn't anything concrete or anything close to an answer, just something I noticed that didn't seem right. He said, could, a lot, could, and would, and if, those are all words he'd used more than once in this conversation, and I doubt there's even one of those statements without one. You are bluffing, I finally said, feeling confident yet again. Oh, so I can lie. There's a difference between lie and bluff. I smirked at him as I went to explain. Bluffing is leading someone in different direction, lying is saying something false. You can bluff without lying, that's what you've been teaching me all month after all. The fox narrowed his eyes at me, but I wasn't done just yet. So, you were bluffing when you said you'd let me die and haven't stopped since. Is that your final answer? Yes. The QB sighed, relaxing back into a less threatening posture. Well, I can't really say that you haven't learned anything, he said, his voice not echoing as much. Go, save yourself from becoming a bug splat at the bottom of a canyon. Are you going to give me the chakra? I asked. But of course, you can have all the chakra you need, he said with a sly grin. Before I could ask what he meant by that I was thrown out of my mindscape. I felt myself falling yet again, surrounded by darkness even after I opened my eyes. But I didn't waste any time moping about it, instead I immediately bit my thumb and started running through the hand symbols. Summoning jutsu, I shouted, slamming my hand down where the ground would have been. I heard a poof as I smelled smoke surround me. Just as I felt the smoke start to disappear, I landed on something springy. I bounced a few times before I finally settled on the surface. I wasn't falling anymore, so I had to assume that whatever I had summoned had done something to fix that. Now that my surroundings weren't rushing by me at lightning speed, I tried my jutsu again to see if it worked. Bluish-gray forms rushed to meet me, showing me the walls covered in sharp spikes as well as the huge form I had landed on. Whoa, I said, finally getting a good look at the toad I summoned. It was huge. The being easily took over the width of the cavern, which was huge in itself. It worked. I scrambled to my feet and walked towards the back end of the creature. Once I was there, I knelt down, staring at its rear. It didn't look like it had a tail, but I wanted to be sure. I glanced back towards its head, seeing it was more preoccupied with its surroundings than with me. So I turned forward again before touching its butt. What the hell? It exclaimed in a deep, gravelly voice. Before I could celebrate the lack of a tail, or even be surprised that it talked, it spun around, almost sending me falling once again. I had slid off the edge of the giant toad, only able to keep myself from tumbling completely off by using chakra to stick to his side. Who dares touch me? He demanded. I stayed silent, not wanting to alert him to my presence. I know you're there, whoever you are, you can't hide from me. Scared of what would happen if I spoke, I didn't say a word. Either come forward, or I leave. Sorry, I said, scrambling forward towards his face until I was standing on his nose. Please don't leave, you're the only thing keeping me from falling to death. Is that why Jiraiya summoned me? To save a tiny human? Jiraiya didn't summon you, I did, I said, my apologetic tone all but forgotten. I needed something to break my fall other than sharp rocks. He stared at me cross-eyed for a moment before he broke out in a shaking laughter that almost made me lose my footing. That's hilarious, he exclaimed in his amusement. A brat like you, summoning me. That's the best damn joke I've heard since Jiraiya tried to pass off his books as fine literature. But I did, I swear it. I don't believe you. Well, it's true. I crossed my arms indignantly. Ero Sennin shoved me down this ravine for some reason and I couldn't stop myself on my own, so I did the last thing I could do and summoned you, so you better start believing me. Are you trying to order me around? He asked, his eyes narrowing. Maybe. I haven't decided yet. Do you have any idea who I am? Not in the slightest. Does it even matter? I'm Gamabunta, you brat, he exclaimed. I stared at him as I tried to figure out what that meant. I'm the chief toad and you're trying to order me around. I don't think so. I couldn't stop my jaw from dropping as I heard this. How much chakra did you give me? I demanded the QB. He only chuckled, knowingly mumbled something about wishing he had snacks to watch the show. Other than your ego getting in the way, why can't you acknowledge that I summoned you? Because it's physically impossible. You don't have enough chakra, your search control is too bad, and you haven't even gotten the summoning procedure mastered yet. There is no way you could have brought me here on your own accord. Now listen here, you. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage. I have more chakra than I know what to do with and have enough search control to stick 6 coins around my head while standing on water. As for the summoning procedure, I am able to consistently summon real toads and not those almost toad tadpoles. Is that so? Yes, and as the guy that summoned you, I demand to be taken out of this ravine. Tell me one thing first, Gamabunta said, giving me a strange look. What the hell gave you the impression that the summoner is in search control? And, better yet, what made you think a blind brat like you can do so to me? End chapter 21. If you enjoyed this what if then like, comment, and subscribe for more content.